Hey everyone, welcome. Shanghai, China, HIFI is back. Glad to be here. Really nice to see a full room for this presentation. My name is George Paraskevakos. I'm the Executive Director of the International Probiotics Association. And here to give you a small overview of the work we've been going at since the last year and some of the changes that have happened at our association. So let me get this screen up. Here we go. So an IPA synopsis of the trends, developments, challenges, that we've been facing from the past, present, and future. So who are we? The IPA is a global nonprofit. We're an NGO. We have status before Codex Alimentarius, and since last year, we're also an observer at ISO. So the standard the standard creation body. So we've been working with them. As of April 30, our community is about 113 companies from 30 countries all over the world. Late last year, we announced the scope expansion. So IP has been around since 1999. It was formed to speak for the probiotic industry. And then late last year, after a year and a half of a strategic rethink, the board decided to extend our scope to cover not only probiotics, but also prebiotics, postbiotics, by default symbiotics. And we're going to be carving out some very special niche for infant supplement in those biotic spaces. And also we'll be looking at companion animals because they also are a very specific niche. So this is what the next chapter of IPA looks like. Our new rebranding, our new logos, and looking at pre, pro, and postbiotics. Our mission is simple: to advocate for the safe and efficacious use of pre, pro, and postbiotics at the global level. And what I wanted to point out and go through currently is what our committees, and these are the heavy lifters of all the work that IP puts out, what our committees are up to and the work and difference that we make for the industry. So currently we have legacy committees, as you see here: regulatory, manufacturing, technical, scientific, and education and communication. And those have been the new ones that have been added are to cover the new scope change, the post, the pre biotic committees, the infant supplement, and companion animals. And within these committees, we also have specific task forces, depending on what the work that has to get done needs to be focused. Like in the regulatory committee, we have so many volunteers doing the work. We've broken out the requirements into regional task forces. So we'll have like a China task force, a North America task force, and we have a European task force, so on and so forth. And that's across all the committees, depending on the work. Currently, we're over 300 volunteer members from our members in the association. So it's a lot of people doing a lot of great work for the industry. Let me get into some specific items that happened this past year. So our manufacturing guidelines that were put forward after a 2-year work process in 2019, and then the pandemic happened, so that kind of got paused. But then we partnered up with GRMA and looked at creating these guidelines and making them part of a standard that was public. So after a year and a half work with GRMA, they are now the IPA manufacturing guidelines, which takes a look at how you take a bulk ingredient probiotic all the way into a finished product. So these are now part of the ANSI 455-2, the GMP public standard. So these manufacturing guidelines are part of this public standard, and they're a normative reference within these GMPs. So a lot of great work there. Happy to see that, it's a standard that's public. ISO, we got contacted by them last year. Basically, we are an observer, and we are currently working at this group, TC34 SC9, and the working group is 11 food, feed, and cultures. And it's basically to look at creating an ISO method for enumerating probiotic supplements. So that was spawned from the IP's technical committee interlaboratory study. When ISO heard what we were doing, they actually contacted us. So we started work there, and we've had a few meetings, and things are going great. Our IP Regulatory Affairs Committee, because of the divergence, let's say, in regulating probiotics globally and lack of any types of specific considerations, I would say gray zones when you're looking at probiotic regulations, no clear expectations, a probiotic product in one country can be considered a food, another supplement, and even in another the same product would need a drug registration. So that divergence and those gaps in the regulatory environment globally has created us a lot of work at the Regulatory Affairs Committee, big government outreach. We're over 60 government contacts right now, and also because of our work at Codex to try and harmonize the guidelines for probiotics at the global level, we're quite recognized as the probiotic people at the Codex Alimentarius. We have 4 planned regulatory workshops coming up. We have one that's will be coming back in Washington, D.C., the one in the U.S. with the FDA and FTC and NIH at the table. We have one planned for Europe in Brussels. We have another one planned in Australia, and hopefully will culminate at the end of the year with Brazil and some of the work that we're doing in that jurisdiction. Our ECC basically continuing to work and putting out different types of blogs and different types of different engaging content, infographics, social media posts. So these are type of things that we try to put out on a regular basis to actually educate people. And then what's happening in this year in 2024 is we're looking at a new website development to actually incorporate all the biotics in those environment categories that we've taken on. The scientific committee, just a quick overview. Almost 40 members there, spanning 5 different time zones. Collectively, they've been published over 1,300 times with 400 years of collective experience, all the PhD scientists there. A lot of brain power behind this committee. And we have a lot of planned manuscripts on the go for 24. We've already published 2. We've published one on the food and pharma, and we published what it looks like to actually create a probiotic in the food space, the supplement space, and the pharma space. And those considerations, we published something on enumeration and the different varying technologies outside of plate count. We have other, manuscripts on the go. Mechanisms of action, agents for probiotic stimulation, colonization. So they're all on your screen. I'm not going to repeat them, but we got these planned manuscripts. And in the works are also manuscripts, and this spans the new committees as well for prebiotics and postbiotics. Stay tuned for that. It's something that we're going to stay away from, that everybody else has been doing, not only definitions, but actual steps of what is required to put these products to market. So the new IP committees, the pre and the post, because of the definitions that exist, and so many of them, we're going to try and hopefully align on an IP position on the prebiotic and the postbiotic definition. And I'll show in the next few slides, how much confusion there is there because of all these different and varying definitions. The infant supplement space, we're going to look at creating some very succinct and detailed guidelines regarding production of infant supplements in biotics, because you do have infant formulas and there's a lot of regulations there when it comes to putting an infant supplement and the different biotics in these supplements. There's some very detailed requirements there as well. So we're going to try and create some guidelines around that. And then again, companion animals, same deal. The companion animals, we've developed strategic collaboration with a few companion animal associations. They've looked to us with the expertise of what it takes to actually, kind of label, manufacture technologies, enumerate these biotics for these companion animals, because it goes far beyond just putting a human supplement to market and relabeling it as a dog or cat probiotic. So there's a lot of work that's going to be done there with the companion animal committee. Our geographical expansion. So yes, we have an office in Europe that we started in 2015, and it's been doing a lot of great work. And we're starting to see the results of that. We're starting to see labeling of probiotics in different countries. And very recently, we started discussions on opening an office in China. We haven't decided yet. We looked at some spaces in Shanghai, maybe in the southern part of China, but that decision hasn't been made. But we're doing the homework to have an office, a regional office in IP in China. And then we're looking at other APAC countries. So we have some MOUs with joint committees and associations in South Korea, and we're looking to put one also in place with down in Malaysia. So some trends and challenges. I want to bring you some facts. These are newly published. We haven't disseminated these yet. We just received these. I just want to acknowledge our data partners on the screen, Luma Intelligence, Euromonitor Consulting, and FMCG Groups. Thank you to those guys. So why is our category in probiotics important? Well, in 2023, we saw the category close out at $9 billion US. That was a historical CAGR of 9.4%, and then it's forecasted to continue growing at 7% over the next 4 years. So we should hit about over 12 billion USD when it comes to supplements. The reason, key points, basically, I think the Gen Zs and the millennials jumping into the space, understanding how important probiotics are in prevention and immune support. I think that's a big one. Beauty from within approach from consumers looking, to health and wellness and emphasizing how they want to stay healthy. And then, looking at the markets, US may still be the largest country market, but China is growing in double digits. It's the second largest and closing in on the US market, and demand overall in Asia Pacific is high as well. So these are key reasons of why the probiotic supplement market has grown. Some regional differences, if I may point out, like I mentioned, the Americas is at 3 billion, with the US being a 2.5 billion USD market size when it comes to supplements. APAC, $3.7 billion, and that's growing at a rate that will be surpassing the Americas. And like I said, China is the fastest growing in that market, which should be first positioned by next year, if not in 2 years' time, will overtake the US. And then the rest of the world, you have Europe at $2 billion, and the Middle East and Africa together is a smaller market, but the forecasted growth there is a nice 11%. Currently at 11%, going to drop at about 8%, which is going to emulate the world figures and forecasted growth. So just an overview, Asia Pacific. It's a small indication of where we are, China being the biggest, South Korea, Japan, Vietnam, and Indonesia, although China, Japan, South Korea, bigger markets, nice growth rates. They're driving most of the growth within APAC. Indonesia, Vietnam are small, but they also have interesting growth there. So again, just reflecting what I just mentioned, how China is the biggest market, then you have South Korea and Japan very close, second and third. E-commerce, this is an interesting one. So the market in 23, $2.4 billion in the e-commerce market. This took into consideration 25 countries globally, high growth countries, influencer countries, estimated to grow to 2.6 billion for next year. And this is overall figures. We don't have succinctly what Amazon is doing, but we also know Amazon is the probiotic category is one of the biggest, if not the biggest, mover within the vitamin mineral supplement category there. So e-commerce, very, very significant to be taken into consideration, and significant when it comes to market data. On the here's the 10 top country rankings when it comes to e-commerce and probiotic highlights. You have USA, China, South Korea, Japan, and the UK, Italy, Germany, France, Australia, and Taiwan. What's interesting here is USA being the biggest market globally right now in supplements and retailer space. Then you have following up second, third, and fourth are the top three growers in the APAC region, and then come back to UK and Italy. So these are interesting figures on how everything is kind of falling into place, but that's your top 10 growers, which represent close to 80% of the e-com market around the world. I'd like to switch gears a little bit, get out of the data space, and talk a little bit about what's happening in the post and the prebiotics environments. And this is why we took it on. The board thought because the biotic space is very tied into probiotics, so that's post and pre, and there's been a lot of interest in the space recently. A lot of players are jumping into the space. but there's no clear set frameworks and structure forward, and there's a lot of confusion. So we thought this was, very, very complementary to probiotics, and we had to take this on, and hopefully we can do a good enough job as we did with probiotics, with the pre and the post space. So if you look at the postbiotic market, I mean, they're underlined by these words. A postbiotic or a biotic that's inactivated, a microorganism that's inactivated or heat killed, is referred to all these words. There's no specific clear way forward. We looked at also the last, since 2009, how many papers have been published in the space. So it's not just the last postbiotic paper, which was published a little less than 2 years ago, that was the first one. There's been papers since 2009 regarding this particular category. I'm not going to call it post because the other papers refer to the category as many different words: heat killed, inactivated, paraprobiotics, postbiotics. All these papers are out there. So the category definitions have been around. There hasn't been too much as a way forward on how to proceed, like the probiotics. Same thing with pre. When somebody refers to pre, it's, people default to fiber, and others don't. They say, well, no, it's more than fiber. It's all these words that you see on the screen that people refer to prebiotics as well. When it comes to definitions, not as many as I would say post, but I mean, if you look at it academically, there's been 5 definitions for prebiotics since 95. There's no established definition when it comes to from the regulatory space, and then companies tend to take what's out there from the academic side and reiterate or iterate their own definitions depending on the company and region. Consumer awareness. This is a Food Insight survey which happened, 1,000 adults, and they were asked regarding, do they know what these categories and terms are? Probiotic ranked high, pre, post not so high, sin even lower. So, a lot of missing education and knowledge. This is a IPA custom report that we commissioned with the FMCG gurus to see what the knowledge was for the pre and the postbiotic space within consumers. So we did this survey. It was 10 countries, 800 people per country. The breakdown of gender was equal, female, male, and we looked at the range of all ages, 18 to 65 and over. And basically, again, what resonates solidly is confusion. I mean, we ask people, what do you consider, a postbiotic? So you see on the screen all the definitions. And the one that's pretty solidly stands out is are not sure or don't know. And then on the right side of the screen, you see, we ask people what are prebiotics, and then you see again all the different words that I showed in the word cloud. But what's interesting, one of the things that popped out in this survey is a postbiotic has been considered as a prebiotic as well. So continued confusion. So this question was, which biotic do you prefer when managing a specific condition? Probiotic came out, it resonated high when it came to all the conditions you see, from GI health, immune support, metabolic syndrome, brain gut. And then the other bar that came out high is not sure which one of these other biotics they would use to manage these conditions. So a lot of confusion. And then we tried to get some market data around the pre and post space, and the numbers were all over the place. I mean, people were reporting category numbers between the millions and the billions. So not very reassuring when you're a company and you want to launch your strategic outreach into these areas, which is the market you should pick first, because the data is hard to discern. Some final thoughts. So IP has been around. We've done great work when it comes to the probiotic space. We've created guidelines, standards are hopefully have been supported by us. Outreach to governments, education. What is we think the next frontier is these pre and postbiotics within human and companion animals. So it's growing markets, a lot of opportunities, but a lot of work to do, a lot of education, too much generalizations about, the individual biotics and what they are. So there's a lot of education. And I like to put this picture up of doing the dishes because it's kind of like doing the dishes when you're trying to clarify, what these biotics are. So they're there and everybody's looking at them, but nobody decides to do them. So IPA decided to do the dishes on this one. So join us in shaping the future of the biotic industry. IPA-biotics.org, and there's my communication on the screen. And thank you for listening and hope you enjoy the rest of the event.